Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name is Keith. Today we're going to talk about an IED that was detonated inside of a church in Pennsylvania. Now we have one person in custody, and just like every episode I do like this, I'm going to tell you what occurred. I'm going to tell you as much information as I have, and then I'm also going to break down what you can do to prevent something like this happening at your church, or if it does happen at your church, how you can handle it. Look, our goal isn't to scare people here. It's just to make you aware of all the things that are going on in Christian churches and synagogues around the country. And I also want to give you that information so that you can take that back to your church and figure out how you can keep that from happening to you. Now, this happened at a church in Pennsylvania. I'm sure if you went to that church on Sunday and asked them, do you think a guy will come in and light off an IED in your church? They would have said no, and it would have been a profound no, but yet here they are. The chances of something happening to you is pretty minimal, but it's not zero. And if it's not zero, then you should learn from everything that is out there. My goal, again, is to educate, not to freak you out. All right, so there was an IED that was deliberately detonated inside a church chapel. Now, I've heard a couple things here. I've heard a chapel. I've heard the rectory, which this happened at a Catholic church. And a rectory, for those that don't know, is where the priest lives. And I've heard a couple other different locations within the church, so just bear with me. But it was deliberately detonated inside church property, and there was one person arrested. That was Kyle Kuczynski. He was 32 years old, out of Mahanoy City, which is in Pennsylvania, and he is accused of setting off the device inside the chapel of the St. Teresa of Calcutta Rectory on the evening of May 6th, which was Monday. Now, Kuczynski was taken into custody by the Mahanoy City Police Department on the 7th. He was booked on a county bench warrant, and he is now facing arson and related charges, and he remains in custody in the county jail while court proceedings are pending. There were no injuries reported, but the act obviously has shaken the church. Now, the church did release a statement, and the Facebook post that they gave was pretty minimal, and I'll show it to you here. It says, St. Teresa of Calcutta Church in Mahanoy City is okay, everyone. The Perpetual Adoration Chapel has sustained damage due to an explosive and is closed until further notice. No injuries. Now, the police describe this as an explosive or an IED. And again, the charges are arson and then related charges, but I don't know what those related charges are. Now, we need to point out that this was ignited within the church, and that is not a random location. Now, there was a statement put out by the bishop. This might give you an idea of maybe where it was let off at. Now, that very short statement says, and I'll put it right here for you, belief in the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Holy Eucharist is central to the Catholic faith. To use an explosive device to destroy the Blessed Sacrament is an act of darkest evil. I thank God that no one was injured in the incident and that the suspect has been taken into custody. At the same time, I am heartbroken that such a heinous, hateful, and evil act occurred at St. Teresa of Calcutta. This act of religious hate is an affront to the long and devout history of faith among the people of Mahanoy City. While offering forgiveness, I pray the person who perpetrated this crime will receive the help and the justice demanded for their actions. Okay, so based off what the bishop says, we can figure out that the target was the Blessed Sacrament, and the device was placed near the Eucharist, was stored or present, which in Catholic tradition is typically the tabernacle. It was likely not just in the general rectory area, but a consecrated space within it, such as maybe a private chapel used by the clergy for daily mass or prayer. I know all the Catholics can actually leave a great comment down at the bottom, kind of explaining more. I am not Catholic, so I'm doing the best that I can to help you figure that out. But the Catholics dive down deep into that comment section and let us know. All right, so what does this mean for church security teams? Now, look, these incidents are becoming more and more prevalent over time. You also want to remember an incident like this just reminds us that threats to churches are not always conventional, like somebody coming in and shooting, or somebody coming in with a machete, or driving and running everybody over. Here we've got an IED, which is usually associated with terrorism, but I got to tell you, I had a lot of IEDs as a cop. In fact, I was a combat engineer. I remember I had an entire week during my 12 Bravo school of nothing but learning how to make IEDs. So we don't know if this was ideologically motivated, if it was because of mental illness, but the effect is the same no matter what. You got a guy that came into church and blew an IED in there, and you should always be ready for that. We've been warning you for some time that IEDs are becoming more prevalent, just like ramming attacks. And we saw a man just the other day run over a bunch of little kids. And I think that was in Pennsylvania too. I can't remember. Look, you have to train your team to recognize more than just people with visible weapons. They have to look at suspicious packages, chemical smells, wires, or strange containers. It would also trigger a decent security response. Now, look, some points for your church safety team. You should conduct regular sweeps of sanctuaries and auxiliary buildings and the parking lot prior to services. You should go through, look through everything, and see if there's anything out of place. You should also train your staff. A good example is the Sunday school teacher. She goes to the same room all the time. She will immediately notice if something's out of place. We want to educate all of our staff. You want to train teams on identifying potential IED indicators like unattended bags, chemical odors, wires, or any unusual devices. You want to review your evacuation protocols for both your congregation and for staff. And I got to tell you, I always hear from churches, we're just going to evacuate everybody if X happens. But when I ask them, have you ever done an evacuation drill? They'll say no. They somehow think that they're going to perform perfectly when that day comes. You need to practice evacuations at least once a year, so that way your staff can, be on top of things. I would recommend doing drills to where certain areas of the church are cut off. Like if everybody's in the sanctuary and there is a IED in the lobby, then obviously they can't exit that way. So they might have to exit towards, like an exterior door that is usually only used by the worship team or something like that. And you want to throw those wrenches into it to get ready for that and to see what that looks like. You want to make sure that you liaison with the local law enforcement or bomb squads for guidance and possible training. You can call your bomb squad and have them do a training for all church security teams in the area to show what is common in the area and what they expect in the future as well. And you want to, again, reinforce awareness among your ushers, your greeters, and your facility staff on how to report suspicious activity discreetly and rapidly. As always, the church is called to stand firm in faith, not fear. Now, faith is not passivity, it's readiness. Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 6 says, "But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, I will hold the watchman accountable." I'm trying to blow that horn, people. I am trying to warn you about all the things that are happening. I hope you're doing the same thing. Now, look, church security is a biblical responsibility, especially for those who lead and protect the flock. While we pray for this congregation and the individual who committed this act, yes, we have to pray for him too. We also acknowledge the reality of spiritual warfare manifesting in physical attacks on places of worship. They have been increasing. We have to be vigilant, informed, and equipped, but not to live in fear, but to protect the vulnerable and preserve the sanctuary of worship for our communities. Do not turn your church into a bunker. We can't do that. You're just going to have to work a little bit harder. After praying for the man that did this evil deed and praying for that church and everybody involved, I want you to remember your ABCs. Always be caring,